Hey folks, so in this video I'll cover the aspect when there is no such pattern visible on the test grid dashboards, like on the dashboards that are being observed by the release signal team. So in the previous video we covered when there is some pattern visible on the test grid dashboards that can actually help us decide whether a particular test failure is actually a flake or it is just maybe an infra issue due to which a test failed once or twice and it is not really a flake. Now, a lot of times there would be only a single failure on the dashboards we observe, and that can be due to multiple reasons. One of them being the nature of the flake itself. If it's a concurrency problem, then we don't actually have any control over when it will show up. It will depend on the architecture and a lot of other stuff. And it can also be due to the frequency at which the job is being triggered. Consider a job being triggered alternatively every 2 days versus a job that is being triggered every hour. So the job that is being triggered every hour, naturally the number of test runs would be higher, and if the flake rate is, let's say, 5%, we'll see multiple tests failed as compared to a job which the frequency at which it is being triggered is alternatively. So in this situation, when we have a low number of failures, the test grid dashboard alone isn't sufficient to actually help us verify whether the test is actually flaky or not. So now let's look at an example that will help us understand this problem better. So right now I am on the master blocking dashboard. This is the main dashboard for a Kubernetes release, and there are a few tests that are flaking according to the test grid dashboard's algorithm. Now let's take a look at integration master because the test grid is showing it as flaky. So I have it open right here, and we can see that this particular test is failing and it has a lot of green runs. Let's take a look at this test's history to see whether we can find a pattern. So far I can't see any pattern, and this is largely green. So now we have come across a test which has only failed once, and most of its runs are green. So first of all, let's take a look at the failure itself. Now, okay, it says etcd main go routine check. Now if you are from a Golang programming background, this is a concurrency problem, and this is not related to any infra issue. But if you are not from a Golang background, you might not completely understand what this is, in which case it's best to verify using a tool called triage. So we have this test failure right now, and we only have a single test fail out of so many test runs. So the flake rate is clearly really low. Now to verify that whether this test is actually flaky, we need some proof. Like we need a few runs, 5-6 runs or maybe 2-3 runs to say that this test has flaked over this time period, and we actually have evidence supporting it. So to do that, we can use this awesome tool called triage. Now let's open triage. It's at go.kh.io/triage, and triage basically aggregates the Kubernetes CI failures. So all the CI failures that Kubernetes has, it aggregates those and shows them in the chart with all sort of data that you need to really verify whether that particular test is failure, is a flake, and whatnot. So now coming back to our test, which is this particular, let's copy this failure error, etcd main go routine check, and let's actually paste this in here, and let's try to find out about this test's history. Now we can see that this has failed recently, and it has also failed in the past. So we can actually see that it was green for all these days, but it has a history of failure. So now this can help us conclude that this particular failure is actually a flake because it has failed multiple times in the past, and there is something related to go routines concurrency which is not infra related. So we can infer from all the clues that we get from the test failure that this is most likely a flake, and we can open an issue regarding it. Now if we scroll down, we can see the job that it says the CI Kubernetes integration master and the test that it has failed with, and the same over here. We can open this drop down list to see when this actually failed. Now this is one example when there was a single failure and it helps us verify whether that particular failure is actually a flake or not. Now there can be other cases in which what happens with, let's look at this diagram, that will help you understand better. So we have these two jobs right here, and both these jobs have some config, prow config, based on which this job runs. And a lot of times it might be that these jobs actually have tests in common. So we can see that this particular job has 3 tests ABC, and this particular job also has 3 tests CDE. Now test C is being shared by both these jobs. What can happen is that we might not find any failure in the job present on the dashboards we observe, which is master informing, master blocking, and the particular release blocking and informing dashboard. But it is very much possible that that particular failure happened for that particular test, let's say test C here, in a different job that we are not observing. So even though the test failed, our test kit dashboards were green due to let's say the nature of the flake, and it actually failed in some other job. So even in that particular case, even if we have a single failure, the Kubernetes failure aggregator will actually help us verify whether that particular test failure is actually a flake and whether that test failure is happening across different jobs. So this is a great tool in that regard to help us find flakes. Previously we had to do it manually, but if now you ever come across any failure, it may be a single failure or like 2 failures alternatively, or whatever the pattern might be, you can always come to triage to verify that whether that particular test failure is happening across different jobs, or what was the frequency at which it was happening. It gives you a graph and all the information you require to create an issue for it. So this was about using triage to actually verify whether a test is a failing test is a flake or not. So that will be all for this video. Thank you for watching.